All day long, visitors to North County beaches have been finding tar balls that could be from the major oil spill in Orange County. And now the tar is being found as far south as Pacific Beach. That's where ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala is joining us now live. And Mimi, at this point, it's still unclear if those tar balls are linked to the oil spill.
Right, Kimberly. So an ABC 10 News viewer reached out to us and said she found some tar balls here at Pacific Beach. She handed a bag over with them to a lifeguard, but at this point, it's not going to be confirmed that they're related to that oil spill.
Of course, California is dealing with this massive oil spill right now off the coast of Southern California. And I know there's an investigation underway into what happened, whether a ship dropped anchor in the wrong place. But while we're waiting for that, what do you know about the extent of
After the oil spill to our north, San Diego County says shoreline cleanup and assessment teams are checking out beaches from Oceanside to San Diego Friday. The teams are sampling water, soil, and air and will be testing that in the coming days. This week, black tar balls have been reported washing up at beaches in Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, Del Mar, and Mission Beach. And on Friday, an ABC 10 News viewer alerted us to more she says she found at Pacific Beach near a lifeguard tower.
That it's time to move beyond fossil fuels. I mean, the future is here. It's now. California has 5 times more green-collar, green energy jobs. 5 times. As one of the largest oil-producing states, we have 5 times more green energy jobs than we do fossil fuel jobs. If there's a foreign policy in California, it's clean energy, it's low-carbon, green growth. And I'm proud of our leadership, but it's not good enough, and it's only been punctuated by this punctured pipeline that is spewing toxic oil, killing birds and fish, impacting our economy, our public health.
To a spokesperson for San Diego Fire Rescue, the city of San Diego is working with other agencies to monitor the spill. And right now, the spokesperson says there is no oil, although there are tar balls on the sand, which we're told is not uncommon. Natural geologic processes may cause them to wash ashore, so it's still unclear if they're linked to that.
And there is some good news coming from Orange County. The Coast Guard now says less oil was spilled than originally thought. Crews are continuing the cleanup effort off Huntington Beach, and officials had said as much as 144,000 gallons of oil spilled. That was worst case scenario.
With cleanup crews that are scrambling to contain a massive oil spill in Southern California.
Good morning to you, Nate. Look, the mayor calls this a potential environmental catastrophe, and it's felt everywhere. One of the most striking scenes I saw yesterday between the crude-filled shore and the boats working on cleanup was a pair of dolphins swimming by, and that's just one of the many species those crews and the teams on land are working to protect. Thick pockets of sludge continue to wash up along some of Southern California's most popular beaches this morning, coating everything from the sand to the wildlife.
The smell hits you, and there is just gunk everywhere.
At least 126,000 gallons of oil began pouring into the Pacific Ocean over the weekend from an underwater pipeline about 4.5 miles offshore, sending a sheen of oil from Huntington Beach to Dana Point Harbor.
Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish.
Tírese más. Señora, lejos, pónganse lejos, por favor. ¡Ey! Salen pero lejos, lejos, señor.
Thank you for your friend. It's just part of the adventure. Bro, what the fuck? The police shattered the door. One of you come in. You're gonna go here. You're running.
start tonight with some breaking news as mandatory evacuations remain in place overnight due to a fire. It's burning in El Paso County. Copter 4 got a good look at the so-called bird's eye fire earlier this afternoon for you. This is near Peyton. Now, the good news is that the fire line has been stabilized, they tell us, to the north. That's near the Elbert County line. However, this fire has burned at least one structure and about a dozen are threatened. Now, some residents did share with us earlier they watched a neighbor's home burn as they got out.
It was just going up our driveway too, but they got it pretty much. It looks under control, we hope. So it was close, too close.
Yeah, crews have been pulled back for safety. They will resume their work tomorrow morning on that fire.
Businesses around the world are taking a huge hit right now because of the pandemic. Much of that burden is being felt by the LGBTQ community. According to a recent study, LGBTQ workers are 30% more likely to have lost their jobs in the pandemic. And here in Atlanta, many gay-owned businesses are doing what they can to stay afloat. And they're finding the entire community is rallying around them.
People were at a loss for what to do and how to make ends meet and how to make it work. And so we felt that we were in a really, special place to be able to offer these services to them.
My wife is Black, we're gay, we're females, and that's pretty rare in business.
You can hear more about how business owners are also giving back to the LGBTQ community tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. when CBS 46 presents Atlanta Pride 2021.
We're glad you're back, but you might want to listen up. Developing this noon, some pretty nasty news about the Chattahoochee River, which supplies the drinking water for thousands of us living across the metro area. The river has increased levels of a bacteria that could make you sick. CBS 46's Sabrina Silva joining us now live from Azalea Park with what you need to know. Sabrina, hard to believe there's E. coli floating behind you.
Yeah, Karen, and the reason why is just so nasty. But I do want to mention here that typically the river is pretty clean, but it's times like this when it rains so much that experts are asking people not to be doing what those two women there are doing right now.
Sharon and Catherine love going on walks along the Chattahoochee River, but after a wet week, they're shocked to learn some unsettling news. All the rain we saw these last couple of days has caused the E. coli levels in the water to register 5 times higher than what's considered high risk.
I don't think I'd be in the river at all, for not even in a kayak. No.
So what's the cause? Fecal matter.
So we're talking dogs, other wildlife, and in some cases, overflowing sewer systems and septic fields.
Okay, that's gross. I thought knowing this, people would stay out of the water. But nope, we saw kayakers still enjoying the river despite the news. But they really shouldn't.
That you do have an elevated risk of rashes, eye infections, ear infections, vomiting, diarrhea, that sort of minor illness by coming in contact with this water.
And just when you thought that was bad enough, get this. Most of the Metro Atlanta drinking water comes from this river.
That's been like that for a number of years. When my kids were young, we just didn't drink the tap water. Nope. Or cook with it.
So what advice can you take here?
Pick up dog poop. Another is don't flush fats, oils, and greases pour it down your drain, because those things clog the sewer lines and can result in overflows that come into the river here.
Now, please pay close attention to the water. If it looks like chocolate milk, well, chances are you shouldn't be inside of it because it is contaminated with E. coli. So, yeah, you can go on their website here at the Chattahoochee River to check every single day what the conditions are in the water, and it's probably the smartest thing to do. But for now, reporting live in Roswell, I'm Sabrina Silva, CBS 46 News.
Well, let's hope a couple of days when the sun comes out, it'll all be gone.
Tonight, a Cape Coral woman tells Fox 4 she got into a serious accident due to flooding, more water issues. This is in her neighborhood. And now that neighborhood's calling on the city to do something about the drainage there.
And this is a story that Fox 4's Rob Manch has been following now for some time. He has the story for us tonight from Cape Coral. Rob?
Call AAA for her, right? Carol Morris says she was coming home from church and didn't realize how deep the water was.
I came down the road and turned, and when I turned, the car just went right into the swale.
She stayed in the car, worried if she got out, more water would come in.
The water then came in through the bottom of the car, It was very scary.
Today, the marks on her lawn and her mailbox show where the accident happened. But this isn't the first time neighbors living on Southeast 9th Terrace have been concerned about the water. In September, Chris Doyon brought a petition before City Council telling them about the issue.
I'm speechless. I really am. I can't believe I am dealing with this again.
Doyon showed us dead fish left over in his neighbor's yard from the flooding, and we talked with one kid who has a kayak he uses when it floods.
It's deep, and the only way to get to my neighbor's house is by kayaking.
But Doyon says Morris's crash made him realize how serious this could be.
Say little Jace, the kid in the kayak, was out there. Guess what? We got a dead child now.
The city says it's working on improving the drainage in the neighborhood, saying, quote, the competitive solicitation process is underway. The city plans to hire a contractor to complete the work. But Doyon says he just wants the city to come out and clear the drain again.
They need to maintain these drains because they're obviously undersized and they're getting clogged.
In Cape Coral, Rob Manch, Fox 4.
Also in that neighborhood is a nearby housing development. It's called Celebration Cape, which has a wall that's in violation with the South Florida Water Management District, and that allows water to run down more of it onto Southeast 9th Terrace. The district tells Fox 4 the development is working with them
As
to fix
doctor offices gear up for flu season, they are preparing for the same problem they've seen since the start of the pandemic. The symptoms between the flu and COVID are nearly identical. But now doctors will have a new test to determine how to best treat those patients. Jeff Todd with more on this new test for us tonight. Jeff, technology is making things a lot easier for doctors.
Karen, coming up this flu season, testing for either COVID or the flu getting much easier. One big difference, you may be doing it yourself with at-home test kits like this. Doctors prefer this instead of having symptomatic people coming into doctors' offices and emergency rooms.
Technology has come so far.
Dr. Scott Joyce showed us a new testing device at Inglewood Primary Care. It can spot flu, COVID, or RSV.
You get the test result back within 5 minutes.
While it's a helpful tool, Dr. Joy doesn't think it'll be used too much.
We only ordered one box because we think we're going to use a fair number of kits at home as well.
The plan for many Health One doctors this winter will rely on telehealth and then overnight shipping kits to patients' houses for them to administer tests themselves.
We're all very sensitive now to infection control and limiting our exposure to patients who are acutely infectious, but also to get that important testing we need to determine a treatment plan.
Which are very different. Flu patients need antiviral medication within 2 days. COVID-19 patients need to quarantine for up to 2 weeks.
I think this is a new technology that's interesting for us to see how it's going to work, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot from it.
Dr. Joy told us that with more people doing telehealth, that you may want some things at home this upcoming flu season. A lot of people have thermometers at home, but one thing Dr. Joy said is that you may want to get a pulse oximeter. He joked that this might be the hot gift coming up around Christmas season so people can monitor themselves through this time when they might be sick. We're live in Lakewood tonight. Jeff Todd covering Colorado First.
Welcome back. A CBS 4 News consumer alert tonight. A new FDA warning about another hand sanitizer. According to the FDA, people should not use any Art Naturals sanitizer. It found cancer-causing chemicals in the product. Those sanitizers were sold at Walmart and some other retailers. The FDA says consumers should just throw them out.
COVID-19 vaccine mandate is now in effect, this time for home health care and hospice workers. Healthcare leaders tell senior reporter Eileen Buckley this could make the current staffing crisis even worse.
It couldn't come at a worse time.
People Incorporated has a small home healthcare division, but Thomas S., Vice President of Emergency Management, Safety and Security, says he's thankful all 24 of those home healthcare employees complied with the COVID vaccine mandate and remain on the job to serve clients with developmental disabilities.
We didn't have to necessarily bring anyone to the point where we said, you know, you have to do this or not, with the exception of one person that we're working with.
There are more than 1,500 home health care agencies across the state, and there is a major concern this vaccine mandate will force out hundreds of workers. A recent survey by the Home Care Association of New York State found nearly 900 home care nurses say they would voluntarily resign under this new vaccine mandate.
The approach on the implementation of the mandate is a cliff.
You either are immunized today and able to provide the services, or if you're not, you're essentially fired and disqualified as a service provider.
𝐿_𝐂𝐑 is president and CEO of the statewide Home Care Association. How many are complying with this, and what are your concerns?
What we have seen, and what is really a concern for us, is the fact that the gap that continues to exist in the system is very significant, both on the nursing side, the home health aide side, and with other professionals that provide these services.
𝐿_𝐂𝐑 tells me they anticipate over 10,000 home health care aides are projected to leave under the mandate.
If you lose 20, 30, 40% of your workforce, it's not like there's something that instantly replaces those workers.
And for an agency like People Incorporated that relies on government funding, it's even harder.
I often say we can't make a better bagel, we can't make a better cheeseburger. We're working with what we have.
S says they are now waiting for the other shoe to drop to see if the mandate will be required for services of the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities that could affect group homes. Eileen Buckley, 7
Eyewitness family
News.
working to rebuild after their world came tumbling down on them, literally. A massive tree right here. It fell on their home last month, taking everything except their lives. CBS 46's Mary Smith reports help is on the way for this family.
The homeowner says she and her 2 children were inside the home when the massive tree crashed down on it. Thankfully, they made it out safely, but as you can see, they lost everything.
It's been just over 2 weeks and wood is beginning to rot. The smell noticeable as soon as you walk up.
I have no words.
Hope Harrelson and her 2 children were just starting their day on September 21st when a massive crash interrupted their morning routine.
I turned around and literally the ceiling, everything just started collapsing in.
An old tree, seemingly rotted in the middle, crashed onto their Candler Park home, somehow sparing her 17-year-old son, and narrowly missing her 19-year-old daughter.
That's what she woke up to, was something hitting her on the head, which was mostly the ceiling had mostly collapsed in her bedroom onto her. And the tree limb literally cut directly through her front window.
A tree so big, it makes this mother of 2 look minuscule.
We literally lost everything down to the clothes on our back. And if it wasn't for my neighbors and my beautiful family, I really don't know what we would do right now.
Now, a GoFundMe has raised about $8,000 as the property remains on the market and a family remains without a permanent home.
There just aren't words for that. Humbling. I could not be more thankful or gracious or anything feeling towards the people that have stepped out and wanted to give.
In Candler Park, Mary Smith,
News
CBS
from Iowa
46.
school districts tonight. Schools in Iowa now being allowed to continue enforcing mask mandates that they've put in place. That's until a law challenging that controversial state law is settled.
How the governor is responding to that lawsuit injunction in our top story at 6. Federal Judge Robert Pratt extended his own order blocking enforcement of the mask mandate ban. It was set to expire on Monday, but will now be in place until that lawsuit is settled. In the closing hours of the last legislative session, Republicans passed a bill banning schools from requiring masks. Educational groups sued, saying that law legally bars them from following federal mitigation guidelines.
Governor Kim Reynolds has appealed that injunction and has issued the following statements, saying, quote, "We will never stop fighting for the rights of parents to decide what is best for their children and to uphold state law enacted by our elected legislators." She also says that we will defend the rights and liberties afforded to all American citizens protected by our Constitution, unquote. Now, the governor's appeal will be considered by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in St. Louis, where a 3-judge panel will get the case in the coming days.
Low natural gas prices. South Dakota Public Utilities Commission Vice Chair Christy Fegan said this winter utility bills might come with sticker shock due to a national shortage. Chairman of the South Dakota Public Utilities Commission, Chris Nelson, wants to warn consumers about natural gas prices doubling over the last several months. It's due to a variety of reasons, including
We're seeing record usage of natural gas to generate electricity. As we see a move away from coal-fired electricity generation, some of that is being replaced with natural gas generation, so larger consumption amounts there.
Northwestern Energy serves much of Nebraska and South Dakota. They say there's other factors behind the shortage besides record high demand, such as kinks in the supply chain, with hurricanes along the Gulf Coast halting gas production for months.
Obviously, the hurricane season is out of anyone's control, and natural gas is traded as a open market commodity. So sometimes fear and things like that drive that market price.
Though prices are expected to climb to their highest levels in a decade, there's still options for people who want to save some money on their gas bill while improving their energy efficiency. Kaylin's Indoor Comfort has an aerial seal technology that helps prevent ducts from leaking air. GM Steve Kistner spoke on the difference one customer saw after having the service completed.
And as a result, they ended up getting the temperature within 1 to 2 degrees difference, huge comfort improvement, but also the ability to reduce that wasted energy going where you didn't want it to go.
Kistner also said this is a great time of year to have routine maintenance checkups on your furnace and to winterize your home by making sure it's well insulated so heat can't escape easily. Dylan Adams, KCAU 9
Autonomous shuttles are on the streets of Gwinnett County. They were unveiled in Peachtree Corners, one of the nation's first smart city environments. The fleet is called PAUL, short for Piloting Autonomous Use Locally. Beep, the company behind the self-driving shuttles, says they'll begin rolling out in the fall. For now, they're staying in Peachtree Corners. Residents will be able to stop at hotels, restaurants, retail shops, and City Hall's Innovation Center at Curiosity
Governor
Lab.
Gavin Newsom signed a new law making it illegal to secretly remove a condom during sex. The law was passed with unanimous approval in the state assembly and state senate. The law makes removing a condom without verbal consent from your partner an act of sexual battery, and anyone who violates the law can be sued. According to the Associated Press, California is the first state to pass such a law. Katie Johnston for CBSN, Los Angeles.
New or soon-to-be parents out there, Oklahoma is facing a major shortage of pediatricians.
And it is not just a problem in rural towns either. News 4's Jacqueline Chappell at OU Health tonight.
OU Health tells us the pediatrician shortage across the state is nothing new. And in some cases in rural towns, parents may have to drive to the next town over just to get coverage for their kids.
It's across the state, from southwest Oklahoma to northeast Oklahoma, and it's in our rural areas and our urban areas. It's a statewide issue.
OU Health says right now Oklahoma is short about 250 pediatricians across the state, making it harder for some to find care.
The state has consistently ranked between 45th and 50th the number of physicians per population.
Doctors encouraging soon-to-be parents to start searching for your child's pediatrician as soon as possible. New mom Peyton Jones moved to Edmond from Tulsa while she was 8 months pregnant, thinking the pediatrician she had lined up was good to go.
I had just had a feeling about 3 days before I was scheduled to be induced, and I called just to verify one last time and make sure that they accepted my insurance and everything was set. And they did not.
Sending her on the hunt for her new baby Lizzie's doctor just days before she was born.
Then I had to call 2 or 3 others, none of which accepted my insurance.
In the end, her hospital locating a pediatrician for her. OU Health's Dr. Jason Sanders says the state is working on solutions.
And just this spring, the legislature made a major investment, the largest expansion in history of residency programs that expand 70 resident positions at OU. But for that new mother or new father, it is critical. Don't give up, please.
In Oklahoma City, Jacqueline Chappell, Oklahoma's News 4.
And Dr. Sanders also says there are just 4 states with fewer pediatricians per 100,000 children: Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada.
This I struggle to believe. Look closely here. The wet monsoon also bringing out creatures never seen before by park rangers. These are 3-eyed shrimp. They're prehistoric And they have biologists across the country talking right now. Brianna Whitney is here in the studio tonight with the story that I first thought was a joke and then have been obsessed with ever since you guys were talking about it this afternoon. What are you talking about?
I mean, they're weird looking. I know. Really, this whole entire situation is wild. Here's the thing. It started out hundreds of years ago when thousands of these three-eyed shrimp eggs were laid, but they stayed dormant. Well, fast forward to 2021, tourists near Sunset Crater outside Flagstaff find these creatures. It's an Arizona rarity you cannot make up.
Things you expect to see in Arizona: cacti and rocks. Things you don't expect to see in Arizona: three-eyed shrimp.
They are ancestors of similar-looking creatures that date to before the dinosaurs.
Marge Ullman with the National Park Services says it all started when tourists were checking out the ball court at the 𝐤𝐻𝐻𝐾 National Monument, a basin created about 900 years ago by the Pueblo people. The tourists thought they saw tadpoles, but they weren't tadpoles.
And it was actually these little prehistoric-looking triops.
Triops, which means three eyes in Greek, are creatures that existed before dinosaurs. Ullman says park rangers working at the National Monument now have never seen this. But because the ball court got so much rain, it was enough water to settle there for a week and hatch these eggs from underground, laid there long, long ago.
Definitely decades, maybe centuries. This is such an unusual year. I mean, this whole monsoon season. And
Ullman says the eggs are one of a kind. Not only can they live through extreme temperatures and drought, but
if something comes along and eats them, they can survive the digestive system and get spread out in different places.
The bizarre sight is one Ullman hopes they get to see again, but suspects hundreds more eggs were laid this summer, which could hatch after the year 3000.
Well, that's not a story I expected to cover this year. But it's crazy. Okay, so those eggs, they can be dormant for decades, centuries, like she said, but the shrimp actually don't live that long once they're hatched. They only last about 90 days, so they have been dying off at the monument.
What?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, what if somebody wanted to go check these out, or where else can you find them? Can you buy them? We're talking about that?
Yeah, so there's different kinds.
Yeah.
You know, when you were a kid, you might buy sea monkeys.
Yes.
Okay, I did that too.
Yeah.
So you can buy these to grow the triops, but they're a different species of triops than the ones that were found at the monument. Those are like a natural species.
I just keep picturing that episode of The Simpsons where that yellow fish jumped out of the water.
is your vaccine team, and U.S. COVID deaths are at their highest level since March. The hardest hit state is Alabama. Nationwide, the number of new adult COVID cases and hospitalizations dropping after the deadly summer surge. As vaccinations increase, thousands of women reporting a potential side effect when it comes to their menstrual cycles. Now the National Institute of Health is launching a study to see if there is a possible connection. CBS's Dina Demetrius reports.
When Dr. Catherine Lee got her COVID vaccine, she experienced something unexpected.
I ended up with really strong cramps and a little bit of breakthrough bleeding after both vaccines.
After a friend and fellow scientist had similar changes after the shot, they created a survey that has received more than 150,000 responses describing excessive or more frequent bleeding, more pain, and missed periods.
The information that we have is anecdotal.
Now the National Institutes of Health has launched a new study to investigate if there's a connection between COVID-19 vaccination and monthly cycles. Dr. Diana Bianchi is leading the research.
I can't stress enough the importance of having a control group to be able to dissect out whether it is actually the vaccine that's causing the changes.
The research may also provide information for women concerned about the short and long-term effects of the vaccine on reproductive health.
How helpful do you think it is to do a study like this while there's such a push to get the COVID vaccine in general?
I believe that there's a certain percentage of people who are hesitant because they don't have enough information. And that's our goal, is to provide information and reassure people that whatever changes occur with the menstrual cycle are temporary and that they do not affect your fertility.
COVID is really bad. It makes people very sick. And having a couple of months of cramping or spotting for me personally is totally worth the protection.
Dr. Lee is also looking to expand her survey into a formal study. Dina Demetrius, CBS News.
Thousands of
Los
Florida
Angeles.
students have gone missing. Oh, that's right, missing from school districts where they were enrolled but haven't been seen since the pandemic began. Thanks for staying with us for Fox 4 News at 6. I'm Jane Monreal.
I'm Patrick Nolan. Fox 4's Katie LeGrone explains how this happens, why it happens, and some of the drastic measures some school districts are now taking to find these lost students.
It's a little known, rarely talked about byproduct of the pandemic.
There are students that we literally cannot find.
And it's still hitting nearly every Florida school district.
There are still lost kids.
Yes, and kids that actually never came.
For some districts, the number of students who have fallen off the school grid and haven't shown up to class remains in the thousands.
Approximately under 2,000 students.
Probably about 10,000.
10,000 students in Broward County alone who the district currently can't find.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah.
It's an issue that isn't entirely new to schools. Students move out of cities, the state, or even the country all the time and don't always let their schools know.
But when the pandemic forced schools to close and many households to lose their incomes, some students never returned back to campus, contributing to the state's overall decline in student enrollment, which was down 3% last year.
It's unfortunate that these circumstances became this dire for families that these kids aren't in school.
The problem of lost students in Florida has become so concerning. In a letter to school districts last spring, the state Speaker of the House urged districts to work with every available resource to locate these missing children. We have a moral obligation to not allow any of these children to slip through the cracks, he stated. And this year, the state started requiring districts report how many unaccounted students they have, including those whose whereabouts remain unknown.
We do know from past history, some of these students, due to circumstances, have left the country, had to take on jobs to support their families, some really difficult, tough situations.
With some 2,000 students still missing in Palm Beach County, the district has teamed up with the state attorney, child welfare, and the Department of Juvenile Justice to find its lost students. Social workers and case managers are being hired to help. And for the first time, the district has even hired an outside firm whose focus will be to hunt down these missing students.
Do you believe that most of them are in the district, or that they've left state, left country?
I think that's $1 million question, right?
Once students are found, getting them back to the classroom may not be so easy. The district preparing to take drastic measures if necessary.
If we find families and parents are refusing to send their kids to school,
Georgia is in limbo. Our state is awaiting possible Supreme Court challenges to Roe v. Wade. The abortion debate also heating up on Capitol Hill, where a bill aims to protect women's reproductive rights nationwide. CBS 46's Sally Sears explains.
Georgians are watching Texas and Mississippi fight to reduce abortion rights. But nobody's waiting for federal court cases. Legislation to make abortion federally protected is challenging supporters and opponents. Downtown Atlanta filled with scores of women last weekend marching for abortion rights. But abortion opponents are no stranger to the state capitol either. They want a ban on most abortions after a heartbeat is detected. A ban stayed by federal court judges, saying a similar restrictive law in Mississippi is before the U.S. Supreme Court, expected to rule this summer. U.S. Congresswoman Nikema Williams says if the court does toss out Roe v. Wade, U.S. senators need to pass a U.S. House-backed bill that protects abortion.
We need the Senate to do the same thing to make sure that no matter what happens in that Supreme Court decision for Mississippi, that women still have their protections under the law.
50 years of abortion rights have done little to change American minds, though. Remarkably consistent polling over the decades shows about 60% of American adults support some abortion rights and 40% oppose any abortions at all. A similar 60% of the U.S. Senate will be required to pass a federal law protecting abortion.
We don't think that there is a lot of traction for this bill in the Senate.
A fact that brings relief to Georgia Life Alliance's Joshua Edmonds.
In this federal legislation, they're talking about repealing the protections that have existed in terms of taxpayer funding, protections, conscience rights. It would repeal the ability for states to actually have a compelling interest to protect the life of the child.
Sally, what we know is that in this country, 1 in 4 women of reproductive age have had an abortion. And so that means it's people that these senators serve. And so they need to hear from you. They need to hear your personal stories.
The Supreme Court will begin hearings in 8 weeks. Sally Sears, CBS 46 News.